Hello economics students. Okay, so let's dig further into demand and the demand curve. Remember, we're really just thinking about how buyers behave, and all we're doing is confirming what we know already intuitively, and that's because we're consumers. And what we know is that when prices are low, we want more of a particular thing, and when prices are high, we want less of a particular thing. Why is that the case? Well, we looked at that in the last video, and that's because of the income and the substitution effect. Now in this video, we need to understand the language behind the demand curve. Specifically, we need to understand the difference between a movement along the curve here and a shift of the entire demand curve. So I've already seen this, but let's just remember that the demand curve represents the theory or the law of demand graphically. Okay, I'm going to get my little pointer out again here. And we're really just saying that if the price decreases from P1 to P2 here, as I just said, that means that we will want more of a particular good or service from Q1 to Q2 here, these points here. Okay, now we're just extending that a little bit more and we're saying, okay, what happens along the demand curve? Well, if there's a decrease in price, then we're going to want more. This movement along the curve is what we call an expansion, from this equilibrium to this equilibrium here. Okay, a movement along the curve, a movement along the curve like that is called an expansion. Okay, a little trick, whenever you move along the curve to the right, that's always an expansion. Which brings me to the next one, which is the opposite when price increases. So if an increase in price on the y-axis here, from P1 to P2, these points here, we know that if prices go up, well, we want less of a particular item, so we go from this point to this point here, or from Q1 to Q2, sorry about my writing. And what that does along the curve is cause a contraction. Okay, the movement along the curve to the left is a contraction. And anytime you move along the curve to the left, we're always going to call that a contraction. Now, one thing I will just say, I've been calling it the demand curve. It's not curved. When you get to university, if you want to study economics, there are actual reasons for that. It's just a line. I'm going to call it the demand curve. Okay, so we need to understand that these are our price factors. Okay, and we call them the price factors because, well, price has changed. If you've done economics before, you understand that the only reason price would change is if there was actually a change in the supply curve. Okay, so if I draw my supply curves here, the only reason that price would change is if there is an increase or a decrease in supply. Okay, but for now, just think of these as movements along the curve are caused by a change in price. All right, so let's move on to shifting the demand curve. A shift is an increase or a decrease in demand. Okay, it's when we get a whole new demand curve. Many will have seen this before, but it's really, there's a whole new relationship between price and quantity. Something else has changed, not price. Now, if you look at the schedule over here, in the black writing here, this is our original demand curve. This line here, or represented by this line here, although it's not to scale. And what's happening is that there's been some change other than price, and that's led to consumers wanting more at each and every price. So instead of wanting $300 at a dollar, they now want $400. Instead of wanting $200 at a dollar, they now want $300. Okay, and some of you may be already thinking, well, what happens? Well, that shifts the whole curve, the whole relationship shifts outwards or to the right, or what we often call an increase in demand. Okay? Now, the opposite can happen if for some reason we want less of a particular product, a decrease in demand, or a shift to the left. Over here on this schedule, we see what's happening. At $1, consumers used to want 300 units of this particular product. Now they want less, 250. The same goes at $2, the same goes at $3, and I could have given you much more detail. You can see that that leads to us shifting the demand curve to the left. Okay, these are called our non-price factors. Very creative, or just factors for short. And that's because something else has happened to change how consumers behave. Okay, more on that in the next video. Hopefully, from this video, we just need to understand the difference between a movement along the curve and a shift in the demand curve. And we'll talk more about shifting in the next video. Bye for now.